unfortunately, retiring early in Europe is not really possible for an average person. You know that whole FIRE movement? It's not possible, and I'm kind of sorry to say that, but I mean, let me show you what I mean. So here I do have a FIRE calculator, and what I kind of did is I basically went out to find the statistics of an average European. Again, some caveats. First, Europe is very diverse. Some countries are very rich, others are very poor. So it's difficult to kind of, take that statistics and sort of mash it together. So do take it with a grain of salt. However, we can kind of find out some useful information from it nonetheless. Second thing is that it's very difficult to actually find information and statistics about Europeans, especially for some key sort of metrics. So again, some of this are sort of estimations, but either way, let's jump in and actually see what we get. So my point is that it's not really possible to retire early in Europe, and I want to show you what I mean. But feel free to use this calculator or just apply your numbers to this to see actually, what happens in your specific case. But usually people sort of start thinking about investing, towards the end of their 20s. Let's say you're at the age of 30 when you actually start, when you hear about FIRE and you have a job and income and you actually want to start to invest. I think it's pretty reasonable for most people, because in their early 20s, not many people think about retiring early or even finding about FIRE. If you are like 22, 23 and watching this, well, congrats, you're way above the, you're way ahead of everybody else. Either way, 30. Let's say sort of you want to retire by let's say 40. Let's just try 40, like 10 years, because 10 years is still a long time, but like if you retire at 40, that sounds very good, right? Now, current invested net worth, that was very difficult to find. So I'm actually setting it at 0, because that's what I believe most people kind of have. By 30, you might have some savings and stuff like that, but nothing probably worth in investing or something like that. So, but let's just, for the sake of this argument, let's set it to 0 and sort of see what happens. Then I did found that the sort of average post-tax salary for Europeans is around like $30,000. Okay, that makes sense. Then current annual expenses. Now this, of course, I wasn't able to find, but let's say, I was able to find how much sort of average European saves. And currently it's around like 13%. So from that 30,000 euros, 13% is around like 4,000 euros per year. Let's assume that you're doing better than the average, and let's assume that you're saving actually $5,000 per year. $5,000 per year, what do we get? That's about 400 euros per month. Sounds about reasonable. So let's say your current expenses are 25,000, which means you leave $55,000 as your savings. Then annual spending in retirement. Let's assume that you spend the same amount of money in retirement as you do right now when you're 30, which is $25,000. And your end age, actual life expectancy, is actually around 80 years in European countries. So let's set to 80. Now, stock allocation. We're not going to touch that. Let's assume that everything that you invest is in stocks, S&P 500, for example, and the return, it's more like 8% return on average. So let's actually lower that and leave it at 8. Let's say you don't do any bond, cash, nothing. Just everything is in stocks, which means you will get the highest possible return, assuming markets don't crash or whatever. Then another important thing is inflation. So inflation was sort of around 2.5% for the last couple of decades. Let's be more pessimistic. I always like to be more pessimistic in that scenario. Let's say it's 3%. So let's say the inflation is 3%. Safe withdrawal rate, FIRE rate is usually, like everybody kind of says, it's 4%. Although there are some sort of discussions and debates that the new 4% is actually 3%, but let's set it at 4%. And then income growth, that was actually very difficult to find and calculate and see sort of what it is. But let's assume you're doing better than the average and your your income grows at 10%, is it too much? Let's say 7%, or something like that. So income grows, we have all the numbers, and what do we get? Well, you won't reach your FIRE before you enter the retirement age. As you can see, your FIRE number is 625,000, which you what is it? Net worth by 40, you will actually just have $87,000. So you're shy about $500,000. Wow. Okay. So okay, let's then go back to the calculator and let's say 15 years. Like you want to retire at 45. Okay, a bit better, but still, I mean, you still have the same amount, but then at the age of 45, you have 186,000. You're still like at least 3 times less than you need to. So you're gonna run out of money by like age, like 61. Again, it doesn't really work for us. Okay, what about like 50, right? Okay, 50. That's amazing. You by 50, you have around $360,000 net worth, and that should probably get you. It seems like, not sure what this graph shows. No, age is 45. Your FIRE is 25. Okay, so this works, but we have to remember a couple of things. First of all, it's gonna take you 20 years, which is kind of okay, not too much, not too little, but you have to remember that your only annual spending is $25,000, including inflation and everything. So your lifestyle is gonna be quite basic. When you were 30, you're gonna have the same lifestyle at the age of 60 and 70. Some people argue that you don't need that much money at that age or something like that. But I mean, if you're gonna retire at age 50, you still have 15 years until your proper retirement, so to speak. But then you're gonna be probably healthy and whatnot for the next 20 years. This is not a lot, and I would argue this is not the best way to kind of go about this. I mean, don't get me wrong. Some people would look at this and say, hey, I don't need to work after 50 and I have infinite amount of money. Basically, I have $25,000 per year for the rest of my life. That sounds amazing. And amazing. If you think that, then this is perfect. Just for me, I'm kind of trying to achieve something a bit more than that. So to have the same kind of level of spending in the retirement as you do right now doesn't really kind of make sense to me. That's why I kind of argue that FIRE doesn't really work for the average European, because of this low amount that you actually are able to spend when you are in retirement. Again, there are some arguments that, okay, you retire at 50, that means you don't need to work, but then you can do something else to have some side hustles and whatnot and kind of earn income that way, but you never have to worry about sort of having food on the table. Again, this is a very valid argument. But if we just took a look at the US, their incomes and their numbers are way, way more in line with that traditional FIRE, where you can actually kind of retire with a lot bigger sort of annual spendings in retirement than you, for example, have at the age that you start FIRE. But feel free to disagree in the comments down below. I mean, let me know what you think. Does this make sense for Europeans? Is this plausible or whatnot? And also, what is your FIRE number? If you plot, I'm actually gonna link this calculator in the description below. So plot your exact age, retirement, salary, whatnot. Just share your numbers. I want to actually see if this is accurate, because I mean, I was taking averages from all European countries, which, I mean, it does mess average up a lot by some people, because if we took a look at the wealthier French or German people, I mean, they might have 40, 50,000 salaries, and it might be or they might be able to save a lot more, which means they can actually get to that FIRE number a lot quicker. So definitely drop your numbers down below in the comments section and let's discuss there. But for now, watch this video where I actually argue why you should not invest your money, but you should do